Okay, first time ever, unscripted, unrehearsed podcast by yours truly, Kevin motherfucking Sloan. Um, I have things on my mind that I just actually can't contain, not because they're so fucking amazing subjects or because they're groundbreaking stuff or like cutting edge science or something like that. It's just that people don't talk very much, and when people do talk, sometimes it's really stupid. I'm sorry, some people out there are just really fucking stupid, and I want to talk. Um, Off the top of my head, I'm gonna go through some stuff that has gone on in my head literally today. For some reason, my mind is extra active today. So here we go. Number one, today, sorry, not today, yesterday, uh, I stumbled across The Big Bang Theory, a comedy show on I don't know how many fucking networks. Um, but it was actually quite funny, and it was a new episode, and I realized it happens a lot where there's a show that starts off brilliant, really funny, or really interesting, and then after a while it sort of loses the plot and things get dumb. For example, with The Big Bang Theory, it started off being basically the Sheldon show where he is really quirky and awkward but extremely scientific even in his everyday living, and people end up just sort of working around him. uh, and it was very science based. There was a lot of stuff in it that if you were scientifically literate, you can say, wow, like I really get this, this is my fucking life. And after a while they just sort of ran out of this really smart stuff, and it ended up that the characters just turned into these like comic book geek guys. Now they were that, but mainly they were about the science in the beginning, and then the writer sort of veered off as they had nothing to talk about, and they just became these geeks. Now, this happens sometimes with shows where after a while it just loses the plot and you tune out. But what happens sometimes with we, the viewers, is that you can go back to a show after a few seasons. You're just flicking through the stations as I was, and you watch an episode like, I'll see what it's like. I haven't watched in a while. Is it still good? Is it still bad? What is it? And this episode was where Sheldon had a problem with closure. He always needed closure, and there was some TV show that was cancelled, and he was like, they left on such a cliffhanger, and then they were cancelled. I have to get closure on this, and he's like ringing up the network trying to get the show back so that there can be a new season where he gets closure, and his girlfriend ends up doing everything halfway or almost completed and then stopping, and so he never got closure, and it was actually fucking hilarious. But it was a more recent episode, um long after the really dry, unentertaining stuff of when they just kind of became comic book geeks. The humor just wasn't working for me. uh but this, I love when this happens, and it's happened with a few things. It's happened with The Simpsons. It's happened with Family Guy, um, where everyone knows The Simpsons has been, you know, it's well past its prime for certain. It's well past its prime, and you know, Homer stopped being stupid and obnoxious and stopped being angry, and he just sort of became, I don't know, just cringe-worthy, um, again, kind of geeky, and just ridiculous to the point where you couldn't relate or even find it funny. But then you can tune into a new episode, and though clearly there are new writers, and not as good as the old ones, um, but you can tune in and you're like, this is actually all right. This is a pretty funny episode, and it only ever happens every so often. And that would be the same with Family Guy. Family Guy, for the first few seasons was hilarious. Like, laugh your fucking bollocks off, funny. And then it kind of got a little bit out of whack where Seth MacFarlane kept doing these jokes that lasted really long and were kind of like, at first when he would do that, it was kind of like, it's funny because he keeps going, and you think it's gonna end, and it just keeps going, and that's why it's funny, because this joke just doesn't stop and it goes on ridiculously long, where you know it's pissing off some people out there. But then after a while, he kept doing that, and you're like, okay, now it's actually annoying, you know. And a few other things where some of his stuff was just kind of, I don't know, it was a bit offensive, or it was just kind of blatantly slagging people. But that's not clever. That's not a clever punchline, you know, or something that we don't expect. Um, but then again, tuned out, and then after a long time, tuned back in, and you see that they have wised up to these, flaws and holes in their writing, and you're like, hey, it's good again, you know. But not enough for me to continue watching like I did in the early golden days, you know, when they're in their prime, you know. What else is on my mind? Yes, this Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton thing. They are both awful candidates, okay? They're so far removed from we the people, it's not even funny. Now, I don't sound it with my weirdo accent, but I'm actually Irish, so it doesn't really make sense for me to be interested in their, like, in American politics. But at the same time, it's all over the fucking TV. You can't escape it. Every news channel on your news feed on Facebook, you know, oh, Donald Trump did this, isn't he fucking stupid, isn't he crazy? And then, like, Hillary Clinton, doesn't she have a big ass? You know, and you just can't escape it. So that's kind of why it's on my mind. That and the voting is either tonight or tomorrow morning. I can't remember. I don't know. I haven't actually been that tuned in. But my point is that they're both awful candidates, but I think your vote means jack. Okay? I think it means squat dilly shit. Because if the established order wanted someone in power, they could put that someone in power. If they didn't want someone in power, they could make sure that they do not get into office. It's happened on with so many people. I think George Bush Jr. being probably the prime example. Yeah, your vote just really doesn't mean a whole lot. Also, central politics really has nothing to do with we the people. It is about money. It is about power. It doesn't serve we the people. I mean, when, like, going into other countries and blowing them up and taking their oil, what the hell does that have to do with me having a higher standard of living? Okay, like, now I don't know. Maybe there is the kind of national security thing where, well, if we don't kill them, they're gonna come in here and kill us. Maybe, but I don't know. I mean, what about all of the other past enemies? You know, what happened? You know, did they just decide after certain, lapses of time, actually, we're not going to go in there. We're not going to make their lives hell. I think America are just tyrants and go around picking fights with lots of people and kind of putting their stamp on different parts of the world. I think they're just vicious. I won't get too much into that because it's a little bit deep. Other thing on my mind, number 3, is UFC 205. Holy shit, is this a good fight lineup? Now, UFC, for some of you that don't know, UFC is like the mixed martial arts where guys get into the cage and they can punch each other in the face, they can choke each other out, they can kick each other, they can elbow, knee, you can slam you down. It's a mixture of many different fighting styles and sports, but it's really no holds barred in the sense that you can punch people in the head while they're on the ground. Unlike boxing, which has big protective gloves, and when the fighter goes down, you can stop. But in MMA, like in UFC, you can continue punching them on the ground, or you can choke them out or get them in an arm lock submission or whatever. Um, so that little bit of information is for the novices out there, but I think at this stage it's fairly popular. People know what it is. 205, UFC 205 is going to be unfucking believable. Okay, Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez, Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus that other Polish one whose name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Tyron Woodley, and a few other really big fights that I can't think of off the top of my head because there's that little bit of camera pressure. But the whole fucking fight card is unbelievable. It's going to be so entertaining. But there is a potential problem, that is this. Sometimes when really big guys fight other really big guys, they're so aware of their opponent's dangerousness that they're actually afraid to get into a slugfest fight, and it becomes this really technical chess match of each fighter being very cautious of one another, and it actually turns really boring. And it's not the thunderstorm of strikes and takedowns and everything. It becomes a little bit too technical, and it's very boring, and you just sort of realize, they're as human as you and me. They're not like these vicious animals that really want to go in there and kill each other. Nonetheless, if it is one of those fights, or many of those fights really, where it's not technical, where they actually go in bloodthirsty, hell for leather, and just try to beat the shit out of one another and kill each other inside the cage. I don't like saying cage, I like saying ring. But if it does turn out to be a slugfest and just wars, it's going to be one hell of a night, because the lineup, or fight card as they call it, is really good. I mean, really, really fucking good. And as well, just Conor McGregor, he's such a superstar that it's like, outside of the cage, his charisma, he creates such a massive hype, um, that you're definitely going to watch his fights. On top of that, inside the fights, he's so dynamic and aggressive that he just makes for these really exciting matches to watch. Like, how often does Conor McGregor go 5 rounds or 3 rounds with somebody? He usually knocks people out in the first or second round. So he's really not only extraordinarily talented, but really entertaining even inside the cage. And that is without talking. He's not talking to us during that time. There is no talk. Even though that's kind of what he's famous for, being a bit of a showboater in a way. What else is on my mind? Yeah, I for some reason ended up looking up these like bacteria and viruses, and what I can tell you is you kind of forget that microorganisms are all around you. Like, there are microorganisms on my skin as we speak that if you got a microscope and actually zoomed in on my skin, you would see a whole load of microorganisms that are as alive as you or me. And it's, in one way, amazing, and in another way, it's a little bit creepy. It's kind of like, holy shit, they're living on me, you know. It's a bit weird, I have to say, because they're not human like. They're slightly animal like, but they're most certainly not human like. And in that sense, they're actually alien like. And if you think about that there are so tiny of life forms on your skin, so tiny that you can't even see them with the naked eye, living on you, that these aliens are living on you. That's pretty creepy. If you'd never heard of microorganisms before, and without saying like, ha ha ha, you are a mad fool, you mad dog, you. If you just kind of believed it and had an open mind, and someone said there are aliens living on you that are so small that you can't even see them, and they, you know, eat off you, that would freak you the fuck out. So that's one thing that was on my mind. I think that's number 4 of the things that I was thinking about talking about. Number 5, it's have to slip my mind now. Yes, David Attenborough. Okay, David Attenborough. He always talks like this, and he makes very, very interesting and spectacular animal documentaries. Right? He's amazing. He makes unbelievable documentaries. I mean, he makes boring animals look insanely brilliant, because if you see like a deer, you're like, whoa, a deer. Now what's it doing? Oh, it's eating leaves, and now it's pissing beside where it was eating leaves, and now there's another deer fucking that deer. Oh, they're finished. Oh, that was fast. All right, they're done. More eating, and now they're taking a shit. You know, animals can be really boring when you watch them, but David Attenborough shows them in a light that is just unbelievable. I'm not saying that animals aren't extremely interesting at times. You know, we could learn a lot from them, and they're brilliant. But I saw a piece of footage, just a clip from his upcoming one of his upcoming documentaries. I think it's like called Planet Earth 2 or something like that. Sequel to his first one, obviously titled Planet Earth, where these sea iguanas were just born. They hatched. They come out of the sand, kind of like on a pebble rock type of beach. And as soon as they come up, there are these snakes waiting to eat these iguanas. And as soon as they pop up, as soon as their whole body is out, not just their heads poking up out of the sand, but their whole body is out of the sand, or the pebbles or whatever, the snakes come rushing at them just so fucking fast. And the iguanas fucking run as fast as they can. And you think that, oh, this is an animal documentary. When you watch this, it is more exciting than any action movie, and it is actually more gripping and terrifying than a horror movie. I can't explain it, but whatever way the videographer did this, and the editor and the music guy, and just what's happening, you really, really feel for these iguanas where you're like, oh, holy shit, get the fuck out of there, run, faster, 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 and it's scary. And then when they, you know, get away, you're like, oh my God, thank Jesus fucking God they got away. And then you're seeing another one that's coming out, and the snakes are already waiting because they're ready now, and stuff like that. You're like, oh, you know, and then when they get them, you're like, oh no. Oh, Jesus God, he's got the iguana, those fucking snakes, you bastards. You know, it was an amazing piece of footage. And I only saw one clip. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing the entire of this documentary, Planet Earth 2. Yeah. If I were to do podcasts like this, number 1, they would be shorter. And when I say podcasts like this, a podcast like this on a regular basis. If I do podcasts like this on a regular basis, I would like to do it like the old style talk show radio guys, where they play music and stuff like that. Unfortunately for me, I don't actually have that equipment right now. I'm gonna purchase some, and I want to make a thing of this where I can just talk. I don't want to interview people right now. I don't want to openly discuss social issues or anything like that. I just want to talk. I think there's certain things that it's actually good for people to hear about and listen to and stuff like that. And as well, just self-expression. I am a guy who needs to express himself. But if I were to do it, I would sometimes play music. I can't play music here. What I will say is, off the top of my head, some songs that pop into my head. There is a guy, if you like really heavy metal or trash metal as it's called, on YouTube, KG something. He has a song called Purpose of Life and another one called On the Cross. He really he has a Pantera style about him down to a T. It's really heavy metal. If you like hip hop, I was listening to the soundtrack of the Straight Outta Compton movie, and there are some really cool songs there. Some Dr. Dre songs actually that I hadn't heard before, because I've only ever sort of touched on uh, rap and hip hop stuff. Another thing that I saw on YouTube that I thought about was a podcast. Podcast is a mashup of classical songs. My mind, it works really weird when it comes to music. If I have a song stuck in my head, which I almost always do, if I have a song stuck in my head, sometimes it gets caught in a loop at a certain section of the song, and then it will naturally flow into another song that ends up being stuck into my head by its key signature or its tempo, like a DJ does. A DJ naturally flows one song into the next. And for some reason, I was in a piano mood, and I was like, I wonder if there are classical music DJs that sync up time signatures and key signatures, um, and so on, and just flow one classical song into the next smoothly. And I looked it up, and you should check it out. I'd leave links, but this isn't the YouTube kind of thing. What else is there? I think if you're looking for interesting music, the Tron movie soundtrack is pretty good. It's done by Daft Punk, and Daft Punk are techno yet funky, and they have some classical touches to them as well. If you don't know Daft Punk, check them out. They're amazing. Um, yeah, I think that's it. I mean, nearly 25 minutes podcast, not too bad. Um, Also, now I don't know if I should say this, okay, because it might be insensitive to someone who I know personally, but an old friend of mine, um, his dad died a few years back under kind of tragic circumstances, and recently on my Facebook page in the people you may know feed, his dad came up, and I got a really kind of cold, eerie feeling about it. Now, obviously, his dad wasn't checking out my Facebook profile from beyond the grave, and that's why that algorithm that makes that people you may know feed come up. But certainly that was a thought that came into my head where I thought, whoa, like, I don't know, it was just kind of eerie. It was just kind of eerie. I can't explain it. It's hard to describe a feeling, but it was pretty weird, and it's a kind of a low note to end on. So if I could end on a happy note, what will I end on? November is shit. No, October was great. October was great for me. It's just a beautiful type of month. Bright mornings, low moons, colourful trees, and everyone being silly for Halloween, which really is no longer for kids. It seems that adults enjoy it more. Um, but thinking about Halloween now that it's gone also makes me think of summer that has just passed. So if you're feeling shit about November, just kind of think about what some of the fun things you did for summer, or in October. Always helps. If you're feeling down, think of good things that you've done in the recent past. So on that note of thinking of nice sunny days recently gone by, I'm going to get out of here. This has been a very good but way too long first ever Kev Sloan podcast. So that's it from me. Peace out.